All right, so next up we've got Jordano
Jordano.
Martinez,
Work in progress.
and the song is called "Beginning of Forever," featuring Olga Ilyashenko
Ilyashenko.
and Joshua Zook. All
Dope.
right, great name there.
Yeah.
Work in progress, and that's what we've got.
Let's do it.
Ready to go?
Yep.
All right, 3, 2, 1, play it.
What's up, SO Beats? Happy Friday. That's kind of cool. Kind of harsh lead there. Violin.
Yeah.
Got a harsh. Whoa, 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 whoa. Slow it down. A lot of crazy stuff. Harsh, harsh, harsh. Aye.
It's a
A lot of
cool
the
soundscape, but those sounds are a little bit harsh.
a lot of the playing is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just the recording and mixing. That's cool. Ooh, that's cool. I like that. Finally, some relief.
Yeah.
and it's over.
Wow.
Some parts I like, some parts I don't, says Espa Beats. I agree. It's a weird track.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally like freeform IDM almost.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of like art music ish.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, should we dive in? We can probably go in order here.
Yeah. What, like vibes and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like IDM to me. I think there's a lot of cool ideas, both production wise and instrumental wise. But there's sometimes where I'm just lost in the noise and not in a good way.
Yeah.
I don't know what to focus on. And then the stuff that's poking out hurts to listen to. Like
Yeah.
um pre-battle song with violin. Yeah. If you have this as your pre-battle song, you're gonna get fucked up. Spoiler.
Yes,
Yeah, you're
that's
gonna get fucked
accurate.
up. But yeah, that's my first impressions really. Vibes. I don't know. I think it's a yellow. Anytime I'm hurting to listen to it, man. I did. Yeah, it's yellow for
Yeah.
me. What do you think, Josh?
I mean, I don't know what the extent of the experimentalism that this person is going for is. Could make a big difference, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're sort of intending for it to be just like this sort of experimental landscape thing, then yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff, in that area that this sits really well with.
Hmm.
If you're trying to make it more soundtrack ish, which I think there's a differentiation between like experimental versus soundtrack,
Hmm.
because you're trying to create more of a purposeful sort of listener journey,
Yeah,
instead of just having a lot of like sounds and experimenting with all of that shit.
yeah,
Which if I had to choose, I probably most of the time prefer the soundtrack ish thing because it has more of a purposeful, intentional you know uh
yeah. I felt no
me-
purpose with this.
meaning to it. Yeah, and there were parts where I felt like, oh, like that's kind of cinematic,
The ending.
but I just don't know if the parts were all strung together in a way that seemed to make a lot of sense, right?
Yep.
Like you would suddenly go out of a section, and I think internally, like you sort of know whether something is makes sense in terms of the durations, like sections, right? Like this section should be like 8 bars, and this one should be 16 or 24, 32, whatever.
Mm.
But you can sort of tell if something's a little off kilter there, and
Yeah.
if it's like every section's like that, it just feels disorganized.
Mm.
So overall, I like what you're doing, and we don't get a lot of this.
Nope.
But if your intention is for it to be more soundtracky and really get like more emotion out of the listener, then I would say it needs some work. I would give it somewhere between a yellow and a green, depending on those things. It's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It might be my lack of taste in this. I have heard like ID. It's not exactly IDM because it's not dance music. It definitely sounds more somewhat soundtracky.
Yeah,
But yeah, like you said, Josh, I think it lacks purpose. Like
yeah,
most of the time, I was confused.
right.
Like why is this happening? Like why is this drum track going panning left and right while I'm getting attacked by a wall of sound that hurts to listen to? It's like
Yeah, well, I mean that was the big problem, and we can talk about that in production. But I do think that like there is a place for the experimentalism vibe, or like a more chaotic sort of story,
mm,
where you are able to sort of incite the imagination of the listener,
yeah,
and I was getting some of that. I just felt like because of the way the sections changed, it was so discontinuous that I was like just confused. Like I wasn't sure what to make of it.
yeah,
Um, versus a story that has all those same elements, but they're just arranged in a more, purposeful manner, organized manner.
yeah.
Should we do? I mean, content
That's
really
kind of
bleeds
what we're
into
talking
that.
about.
Like
Yeah,
pretty much the arrangement.
structure.
Uh, yeah, the structure could just be more intentional. I can't really think of much else in terms of content. You did talk a little bit about like the recording, and that's sort of like source content.
Hmm.
I don't know like what here was recorded live and what wasn't. I mean everything sounds like convincing. Like I think that
Yeah,
the sounds themselves, if it's real playing or if it's samples, either way it sounds convincing.
yeah,
Um, didn't really hear any issue with that. Maybe one thing, I thought some of those like static parts were a little bit too intense. Like you could maybe just turn the static down a little bit, honestly. Because they sound like, I think for some reason when you put static in something and you make it way too loud, it becomes cheesier. Like the more volume that you add, the more proportional to the rest of the mix. Or it could just be that the mix doesn't sound fully authentic because that's a volume balance. issue. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, otherwise, I think your content is pretty good. I would give you closer to a green probably on the actual content. Although I guess factoring in arrangement, again, I would give you like halfway between develop and good to go.
Yeah. It might be my lack of expertise in this area, but um, there's parts that I really liked. I agree with Espa there. There's parts that I did like and parts that I didn't. What I really liked was the end there. There was like a nice reprieve. There was a beautiful synth and a beautiful melody. I was like, ah, this is great. Um, but the whole kind of journey in between, um, I was just confused and I was, my ears were hurting. Um,
Yeah,
so I don't know how exactly to fix that. Um, I'm trying to think how exactly I would approach it, but I just didn't feel even melodic wise. It didn't feel like any sort of tension or journey was happening. It just sounded like a bunch of crazy shit, and then an instrument, and then an instrument with a synth that rhythmically doesn't really fit together. Like I'm thinking of the sax and this kind of LFO synth bass kind of thing. Um, it was just weird. I can't really describe it. Um, so that's my kind of downfall as a reviewer. But this is what
yeah.
I'm hearing. So arrangement for me, I think it's between it's a yellow and an orange, or a yellow and a red. So orange for me.
Sure. There was one thing to think about there. I mean, again, if it is meant to be just an experimental thing, like I don't think you're that far off in terms of the arrangement stuff.
Hmm.
But again, it depends on what your intention is there.
Yeah.
There were points that I realized like there is definitely a meter here. It's not like totally free form time signature.
Yeah.
There's
For
there's a
sure.
beat
Yeah.
to it, but I did notice at least a few occasions where things were a little bit out of that, like
Yep.
not in like a swung way or something that would be more intentional again,
Yep.
but just like whether it was playing or a sample not properly aligned, the timing was a little bit uh, distracting to where it's like, oh, that's not a professional. It's like an amateur type thing because it's
Mm.
not played in time.
Hmm.
That's just like it's always hard. I mean, there's a lot of good people that even make mistakes like that. But
Yeah.
if you want to sound professional, it's got to be played like in time.
Hmm.
That's a big thing. So then I think the biggest thing for me, like throughout the whole song, I was riding my volume knob
Me too.
because those high everything is just too harsh for the most part. Anything that
Yep.
has significant high frequency content, too harsh. Um, check maybe your room is over treated, so maybe
Yep.
you are in a carpet room with like curtains and like foam on the walls. I generally recommend against in a mixing setting acoustic foam, like the thin foam stuff, because it only absorbs high frequencies. It doesn't absorb any mids or lows. So what ends up happening if you have too much of it, especially, it can be used to solve flutter echo problems and stuff like that because that's limited to the high frequency range. But if you have mid or low end issues in your room, which if it's a smaller room you probably do, that's to solve those problems, and it's going to make your listening environment less balanced. So now you're getting no high frequency back in your ears, but you're getting more mids and lows than you are supposed to. So
Mhm.
it's unbalanced. It means that you're going to overcompensate and put too much high end into your mixes, and in some cases not enough low end.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe it's a room problem. Maybe it's the speakers or headphones. Maybe it's your ears. Just kidding. Hopefully it's not.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully.
I would say, I mean, overall, I don't think that the mixing is terrible.
No.
Uh, Not at all. I
No.
just think that there's an overall sheen of things being too harsh. That's it.
Yep. I was
So
thinking the exact same thing.
yeah,
Exactly.
you might even be able to get somebody to master it and
Exactly.
bring down the high end a little bit.
Yeah. It might
Uh,
just needs to be like, or specific, just frequencies that are just way too pingy or ringy, and
yeah,
just get a really skinny EQ filter there, and just, or bandpass, or what is it?
yeah.
Notch.
I mean, right. As a quick fix, easiest thing to do would be to apply really carefully some sort of master EQ or a multi-band compressor or limiter or something that's gonna sculpt your sound back to what it should be. So
Yep.
pretty much like removing those really harsh frequencies, and it's probably not the whole top end. It's probably mostly in one area that our
Yep.
ears are super sensitive to.
Yep.
But that's probably the easiest way. The better way for the future would be make sure that your listening environment is telling you the truth, basically, so you can mix and expect other people to hear what you're hearing.
Yeah.
So for production, I would give it again, I mean, pretty much between develop and good to go. Like other things are really good. It's just the issue with the harshness,
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's not a lot of issues here, but there is an issue, and I think it's big because it hurts to listen to. So I'll
right?
put it as yellow. Um, and for my overall track total, I think it's a yellow.
Yeah, I would give it maybe like just above a yellow. You know, there's again, if you're trying to be experimental about it, you've got a lot really working for you here.
Mm.
But there are definitely some things to work on. So